until they get in here.
Okay.
Does anybody have anything they'd like to talk about this morning? Just curious. All week long, as I was thinking about coming here today, I kept on looking for a topic or thinking of some clever phrase to start with, or noticing in my life that there's just a lot of crazy thinking going on and some strange emotions I'm experiencing, but I wanted to act like I was normal up here. So I didn't want to really talk about crazy emotions and strange thinking. However, one thing I do observe is that in our humanity at this time, there is so much going on that sometimes it's hard to find the potential of things. We've looked for the new normal, we've grasped for the new normal. We've sort of thrown over the old normal for the new normal, and then the new normal comes in on the new normal, and so it just keeps spiraling. So all of us are looking forward to a time when we don't see somebody from just their eyes up, and sometimes we're looking forward to a time when we can feel that we don't have to tell somebody we've had our shots. There's something about that that always makes me aware of all the years I took my animals to the vets. But so here we are, and we're looking for potentials, we're looking for possibilities, we're looking for healing, we're looking for an opportunity for some magic in our lives. Magic meaning to me just those wonderful serendipitous experiences or opportunities that seem to occur when we're not necessarily looking for them, or we didn't necessarily plan for them, and yet what we did plan for or what we did hope for were in the meditations that we do for healing, the thoughts that we project about manifesting financially, the thoughts that we have about a job or a situation or a home or a relationship. It doesn't matter what our thoughts go out to. Some of the information about life has a lot to do with living, in the fact that here we are today, and when you are born, you have infinite possibilities connected to you. Those infinite possibilities are not necessarily ones that you know about. They are not necessarily ones that are prescribed for you. They are not ones that are your fate to live or experience or even do in life. But they are an infinite amount. Infinite is a pretty big term because it implies that there are possibilities perhaps that you have that you don't even recognize your potential for. And that's the hope that I would like to talk about today. As I drove in here today, the Bee Gees were singing More Than a Woman. I just want you to know that I got really pepped on that one. Because, it's like, how do you feel more than in your own life? And so here we are, and it's Mother's Day. I am personally not a mother of children, but I have had cats. I just want you to know that I was compulsive and obsessive about my animals when I had pets. And I had them for 20 years. And I drove 3,600 miles with my cats in my car. So I want you to know my bravery extends. You have courage, just as I had courage to drive 3,600 miles across country, because I moved out to Washington State for a few years, and I found that when I drove into Florida with my cats that I had acquired in Washington State, that it was a whole new experience for me, and a whole new experience in driving in the car. It wasn't that big of a vehicle either, and it was packed to the gills. So the interesting thing is, in your life, you have experiences that no matter how mundane they sound to another person, or how insignificant you think they might have been, they are yours. and you've had the courage, and you've had the hope, and you've had the opportunity to expand you, because those potentials that I mentioned that are connected to you at the time that you are born, your soul reaches out and it has tendrils, and those tendrils are infinite. And those tendrils aren't necessarily ones you can see with your physical sight. They aren't necessarily ones that you know, but they are opportunities for you, because at every stage of your life, no matter what you face, no matter what you experience, no matter what you do or why, you have the opportunity to manifest or to have experiences occur where there are seeming opportunities in that, because everything has that sense of hope. The first reading that I ever received from a medium was prior to some of the years that some of you were born. And so it was many years ago. And by the way, we need to update my data, because I've been around a little longer than, anyway, just saying right here. But what I'm getting at is that the one thing that was provided in that reading for me was a sense of hope. And it was at a time in my life when everything didn't seem very positively moving in a direction where I could feel that I was going to achieve. Your life has had accomplishments, and your life has had an awful lot, but we all have had conditioning from the time that we're very little. And that conditioning isn't always to trust in ourselves. It isn't always to recognize the accomplishments that we do achieve. You have every right to be proud of who you are. You have every right within you. It's a divine right. It's not a right somebody else grants you. It's the fact that you have accomplished. It's false pride that is frowned upon. It's not wanted because it's false. Why would you be false to you? But what we learn as little children, and you know, it is Mother's Day, and my mother was very different from a lot of mothers, and my lifestyle was very different from a lot of people in the early years. But the one thing that most of us received was a promise in our youth of achievement as we got older. If we did certain things, we would accomplish this. If we did certain things, we would accomplish that. Was it meant maliciously? Of course not. It was meant to carry on the myth that perhaps we needed to learn to cook. Right. I did sort of, but I don't often. And so it's about the fact of living your life in the best way you know how at this time. We've all gotten through 2020. Otherwise, you wouldn't be sitting here today, and thank you for coming. But also, the exciting thing is the potentials that are ahead. We don't know what they are. I have a quote on my bathroom mirror. I have lots of quotes all over my house. And it just says, you're moving out into a different world. Let that difference awaken you. Let that difference awaken you. I am not technologically real savvy. It was last year that I got a smartphone because I was starting to feel dumb. But it's like I had a flip phone. It was an old flip phone. It was a jitterbug. For any of you who don't know what in the world a jitterbug is, it's for older adults. And it has big fat numbers on it. And it has people you can call if you don't know what you're doing. But I could not get a text. And so I really messed up the first time I tried to use PayPal for my own work. I gave the woman my password. I know. Anyway, so then PayPal determined that I was fraudulent, and I couldn't get it corrected because I didn't have a flip phone where they could text me a code. You know the code? I couldn't. And I was sitting with the person we called PayPal on the phone to get this remedy, and the person that was sitting with me teaches computer and has a regular phone and does everything on their phone, right? And PayPal wouldn't text them because that wasn't me they got, even though we were sitting side by side. So maybe they thought I wasn't who I am, but I really was who I was. So, what happens for you when you do something that's goofy? Is it a mistake? No. It's a misunderstanding of your choice. You get it? So your whole life is full of choices. Your whole life is full of those opportunities and those potentials that I mentioned in the very beginning. Those potentials are there, and they're going to continue until your last breath. Your last breath. Not your next to last breath, your last breath. The gorgeous thing about life is your inspiration, your encouragement, your intuition, your guidance, your inner awareness, whatever you believe in, is significant. And those accomplishments that I was referring to a little while ago, well, I was listening to more than a woman on the way in. And I just want you to know, I'm still working on her. But you know what? The exciting thing is there's no need to compare to the should. When you learn from your own mother, or your own parents, or even just society, doesn't matter from where, but if you learn that you're not good enough for any reason, for anything, I was very concerned about dressing appropriately for the church. I go through this dilemma almost every time I speak, whether it's here, Casadega, or out of state. I can't tell you where this comes from completely, but I believe it's from those early years of my life when you had to do it right. You know the feeling? You had to do it right. You didn't know what in the world wrong looked like. Like, heaven forbid you didn't want to do it wrong. Did you do that? Is everybody awake still? I just wanted to double check here. And so it's like looking at the potentials of things. Down in the dregs, in the worst time of your life, and we've all been to one or more places like that, is that there's a groveling that sometimes, at least I've done, where looking for a solution or looking for an answer or even looking for a topic to talk about today. And it spins around inside and the energy gets just churned up. And it sometimes is an energy that isn't comfortable because it's not answered yet. It's not there's no solution seemingly. Your lives are filled with potentials. That's possibility. That's not going from greater to lesser. You're always going to go from lesser to greater. And the greater means we believe in natural law. I've been teaching it for 45 years. Sorry, Annette. Got more right here. But it's about understanding the energies of life and how to move and flow with them. It doesn't mean that life becomes all blissful necessarily. It might. But what it does mean is when that energy is churning around, when you don't know about the next job, or you don't know about finances, or you don't know about your health, or you're experiencing something that's making you unhappy. It's that energy that swirls within you and doesn't seem to shift or doesn't seem to have a change in it so that you can experience life just a little differently. It's the time that we always encourage, take a deep breath. It's the time you can often meditate. But I do want to tell you that meditating, while it is very beneficial, it still leads you to that place of an unanswered experience, need, hope. What will allow you to move that energy is action. And it might be the action of that breath, or it might be the action of making a phone call. Does anybody make phone calls anymore? But it may be taking a step, because action is hope, and hope is action. Hope isn't just in meditating on something and hoping that it will manifest and materialize. Hope comes because you take a step. Hope came because you came here today. You may have been looking for something. You may have wanted to support something within you. You may have wanted to see a friend or to experience something or just be quiet out of the house or away from other things that are around you in other places. Doesn't matter. What does matter is the possibilities that are attached to you at this time. Are they attached in such a way that you can feel them? Not necessarily. But have you ever noticed that when you think, and it's a biblical term, that one door closes, how magically all these other doors begin to expand and show themselves to you in your inner vision? Maybe not intuitively, but all of a sudden you have a glimmer of an idea. All of a sudden you have somebody say to you, you know, if you only go down to the Circle K, you might get one. And you go there, and there's a winning lottery ticket in the parking lot by itself. And suddenly you take it in, and it's a winner. How did you know it wouldn't be if you didn't try? And does it mean you need to turn it in? That's yours, your conscientiousness, whatever that might produce. So all of your life you have choices, and all of those choices that you have, none of them to me are right or wrong. There's a lot of choices that I've made. I don't want to make them again. I choose to do it differently. You hear it? Because I discovered something in an experience that either didn't work for me or didn't produce what I was hoping, or I felt that it fell short of something more that I could have achieved and done. That does not mean that it was wrong. What it means is, all through your life, you're going to be making choices, and those choices are going to show you changes. And we're in this incredible time of change now. We're in an incredible time when the things that we think are durable haven't been so durable. I got real disappointed that sweet tomatoes went out of business, because I ate sweet tomatoes every so often in coming into Orlando. And I really enjoyed the restaurant. Now that might seem like a trivial example, but what has taken itself out of your life in the last year and brought in something different? I had a whole bunch of stuff do that last year, and some new things show themselves as potentials, and I grabbed them and moved with them. I grabbed and said yes. Grabbed and said yes. If you recognize everything in your past, if there's, I drew this for a natural law workshop one time, is that if you had a profile of you, and in front of that profile there's nothing there other than a wide cone saying potentials, possibilities. But behind you, you had a dot behind you on that drawing showing everything you have done in this life so far. Every experience, every relationship, every job, every place you've lived, yada, 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 yada. If you had that, and you recognize that the majority of people pull all those dots forward thinking that's who they are, and it's not. You have all these infinite potentials. And on Easter, I was fortunate enough to speak on new beginnings in our community. And the incredible thing about what's out here, what's in front of you, those possibilities ahead, is you're not going to know them fully, but the potential is right there. This morning, I really didn't want to drive in here. It had nothing to do with seeing any of you and coming to this church. It had everything to do with driving. I haven't been driving that much. Somebody drove me up to Virginia the whole way and back the whole way, so I just haven't been driving very much. Driving isn't as much fun for me as I get older. Doesn't mean I can't do it. Doesn't mean I won't try. But then, if you see this car on the road doing all this, you might know it might be me. But what I'm also saying is that when you're looking into the future and when you're looking now, it's to look at who you are and who you're becoming, not who you've been. Doesn't it mean that you don't have beautiful strengths and capabilities that you're going to bring forward? But it might mean that you're going to add to that, always. Life and society don't necessarily show that to us. One thing that I went through in 2020 was the fact that they kept repeating about older people not doing so hot. So there was a bombardment of information that was fearful, in my opinion. It was extreme, in my opinion. Wasn't wrong or right, it was just a difficult time. But it was a continual bombardment of speaking terms that were not uplifting, healing, and encouraging. And as a senior citizen, I heard them. And you know what? They were significant. And yet what I also understand about these times, humanity all over the world is changing. It's just changing. Your perception of your life changed last year. Maybe only a little bit, maybe big, but it's yours. So what you're carrying into today, tomorrow, and the future has a lot to do with who you are today, tomorrow, and in the future. So you'll bring forward some of those dots that I mentioned in the past, that are those moments. But your life is moments tied end to end in an incredible tapestry. And you're going to be adding to the tapestry of you continually. Remember that last breath? Yes. And while we do that, the amazing part is that I don't know how things are going to go for me, and that sounds funny to some people because I've been a medium for 45 years and I trained for 7 before that. But what it does mean to me is that I don't have a full grasp on the future, but I'm going to walk into it. So as I drove on the highway today, what I realized was I was sitting in the fear, and I wasn't sitting in the hope. And in the hope is that home with infinite possibilities. That fear is a projection of something in the past that is often learned, and something that is brought forward, and the fear doesn't serve the hope, does it? So it's important in your life that whatever you're viewing for today, whatever you're wanting for today and tomorrow, keep walking toward it, recognizing that it doesn't have to be what it was. It can be even more, or it can be something very different. The possibilities are infinite. The possibilities are big and grand. And the possibilities are yours, all for the taking. You don't have to do anything to be better in order to have them. You don't have to let loose of anything. You don't have to get rid of your temper, or your impatience, or your sadness, or your difficulty, or grief, any of those kinds of choices. You don't have to get rid of anything. You've already got possibilities, but it's an opportunity to recognize that you have a possibility more and more to go towards something that will bring you joy and will bring you hope. When we just sang, I've got joy like a river, I've got joy like a river. Fountain? Fountain. I got it.
Peace in the river.
Well, yeah, it's peace in a river and joy in a fountain. It's a lot of water. But, get it? Got it? Good.
Yeah.
Thank you for nodding.